You have to see it for yourself.
Man, who made this?
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Notre Dame is Neo. They are Neo right now. You got to make the choice.
Did Justine make that?
Go,
That was
yeah,
awesome.
unbelievably done. But from the mind of myself, of course.
Oh,
but
yes.
but I know Notre Dame is probably not going to do it. Okay, I get it. But we always talk about storylines in college football. And can you imagine the madness of Notre Dame coming to the SEC? The great reversal. I mean, it'll be the most important thing since the Great Flood.
When you say you know Notre Dame's not going to do it, do you mean join a conference or join the SEC?
I'm talking about joining the SEC. They're going to end up in the Big Ten.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, I love your point of the geographical component of this is out the window, at least with this USC and UCLA edition. Before that, it's sort of, we were at least adhering to some sort of geography. I mean, I know Texas, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, but at least with the SEC, it sort of, there was a geographical component to it. And when you look at Clemson, what makes the most sense? The SEC.
True.
I mean, geography aside, their biggest rival, South Carolina, is in the SEC. You look at the other big schools out there, Florida State, or even possibly in North Carolina and Duke, who would kind of come together if you're looking at college basketball. I think it makes the most sense that would be probably SEC. So if you're the Big Ten, you have to go all in for Notre Dame. It's always made the most sense that Notre Dame should be in the Big Ten.
That's why it was so funny when they were in the ACC for a year. It was just weird to me. It's like they just picked a conference out of the hat. And again, I think it'd be great for college football. I think a lot of the college football fans would agree with me. I wonder, to Notre Dame fans out there, whether it's in the comments, whether it's in the chat right now, let us know which one you'd prefer.
Mac?
Maction?
Well, Maction action?
Stop it.
Don't join the SEC. It'll be the worst decision you ever made.
Tuesdays.
You will get slaughtered.
They don't want to play Michigan.
Week in and week out. Notre Dame is soft. They've been soft. When they got to the SEC schools, they get ran through. Notre Dame reminds me of the kids when I used to play football. That'd come out of the tunnel doing this. If I saw them doing that, I knew, y'all, we were about to kill those kids. Go to the Big Ten. Don't go to the SEC. You're not ready for that smoke, buddy. I promise you that.
I don't know. Marcus Freeman, the way he's recruited right now, it feels a little different in South Bend. Obviously, BK was the all-time winningest coach there, but Marcus is dogging it on the trail. Now, we're going to see in-game. We're going to see, running the whole program, getting everything set up. Are you able to insert the process the way you want it, to take a euphemism there from Nick Saban? But I do think Marcus Freeman may have a chance to help Notre Dame really get over the hump, not make the playoff, but I just feel like he is so connected with the players. And you're seeing it in recruiting. They are 100% going to play for Marcus Freeman. I never thought I'd see a day where kids are going to play for the coach at Notre Dame, not Notre Dame the team. And I think you're seeing that with Marcus Freeman. I tell you what, if they were to come into the SEC, just like Texas and Oklahoma, it's going to take a little bit, to kind of get, acclimated to it and that. But, me and Cone were talking before the show, and it's like, all right, well, the SEC, and Cone, you made a good point. The SEC is fantastic because the South cares about football the most, and that's where the best athletes are. I'd agree with that. I think you'd agree with that. But if Notre Dame were to play in the SEC, you could now go into those homes in Florida, and Notre Dame's had success in the South, but into Florida, into Georgia, into Tennessee, into Alabama, into Mississippi, into Arkansas, into South Carolina, and say, guess what? We're in the SEC now, so at least half of our games, you're going to be able to see. Yeah. You're not going to have to go all the way up to South Bend. You're not going to have to go all the way out to Air Force or SoCal or go all over the country because we're independent to watch your kid play. You can watch him play and still live down in the South.
I thought this was the most interesting point of the conversation we were having earlier. And we're not talking about historically. I mean, you look at Southern Cal's been great at football for a long time. The Buckeyes, Michigan have been great at football. Even if you want to go as far as to say like Texas, Austin, even though they can kind of be considered in the South to some people. But at least the last decade and a half, right, when the SEC went on that big run, you can say that the South, the order of operations to me is not that Southeastern Conference schools have done better because they're in the SEC. It's that the SEC Conference schools have done better because the best players are coming out of the South, basically.
True.
So my question to you was, will Notre Dame benefit more from being in the SEC just from recruiting, even though the geography of the school is not going to change, or can they still, recruit at the same level in the Big Ten?
Well, I think them joining a conference, whether it's the Big Ten or the SEC, is going to help them in recruiting.
Regardless of which one it is.
Regardless of which
You
one.
think if they join the Big Ten rather than stay independent, their recruiting would increase?
I think it would even increase. I mean, what Marcus is doing right now is unbelievable. But if they go from independent to actually joining the Big Ten or joining the SEC, I think that's a boost. Because if you're a player now, it's really weird the way Notre Dame schedules. They've had the teams they typically normally play, and then they spray it all over the place because they're independent. But now it's set. Now if you're in the Big Ten, you're like, man, we're going to play Ohio State every year. We're going to play Wisconsin. We're going to play Michigan. We're going to play Michigan State. To me, I think it's kind of more set, and it makes Notre Dame even more relevant. I feel like they enter the conversation even more. I think it is a good thing. I've been clamoring this forever. You look at how much it's helped them in basketball. They're in the ACC in basketball, and they love it. I loved, because basketball is different than football. You play more games, geographically it's a little bit different. But I feel like once they get into a conference, man, it's going to be a boost for them. And y'all know me. I'm not the biggest Notre Dame fan of all time. I'd love to hire Marcus Freeman. I said when they hired him, I think they made a great choice. You're seeing the benefits now in recruiting, and I think you're going to see those guys take up their level of physical play a notch because that's who Marcus is.
Well, last point here on the geography of this, when we were talking about USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten and, the distance that they would have to travel to play games, Notre Dame has been a rogue school that has traditionally had to travel. I mean, they go to USC and Stanford almost every season, or at least every other season when they have those away games. So they've been the one school that's like, we're going to set our own schedule, right? And we're going to play whoever we want anywhere around the country. So it doesn't seem like joining the SEC and having to play a lot of schools geographically in the South that would be that big of a thing for them.
But again, Notre Dame is playing those schools in the South. So now those kids that don't get a chance to watch Notre Dame, they're getting to see them every week.
At least, or every other week, for sure.
I guess I wouldn't mind it. One, I wouldn't have to watch Notre Dame take up a playoff spot and get absolutely murdered if they join the SEC too. But doesn't Notre Dame have a certain academic standard for you to get in their school?
It is, but to me, it's not nearly as drastic as some of the places you're going to see. And Notre Dame is willing, in my opinion, to do what it takes. I think Notre Dame is one of those few people. Look, one call to the Vatican, guys. Listen, let's talk about it. Let's go ahead and, GPA, let's get it down. We're going to get GPAs down.
So Notre Dame would change their standards if they went into a new conference.
I don't know.
I think they would.
And I don't know if they're the only ones.
I think, look, there are some schools that are willing to lower GPAs to hire 40 times, and I think Notre Dame's one of them.
Well, how about Stanford then?
No.
How about Stanford?
I think
one of those ones that's
Stanford identifies as an academic school that just happens to have sports.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, to me, is a sports school that just happens to have really good academics. So I think in the
what about
pecking
Michigan?
order, Michigan? I don't know. Y'all are starting to fall apart over there. So that's a different story.
It's a big question.
Y'all are going. Stanford is an academic. Look, I know Michigan's a good academic institution, but Michigan has problems on the inside. I don't think it's going to be a pure academic thing. I think it's a philosophical thing that's Michigan's problem.
Yeah.
All right, hey, if you like what you heard, go ahead and ring that bell. Turn those notifications on. We're bringing it every day daily from 2 to 3 Central, and we want you here. I can hear it ringing now.